In this video, I want to introduce a little bit more complexity into basic keyframe animations. So I'm just going to use a basic ball for this. And in this ball, we might decide we want to bounce it, right? So we could go ahead, bring our scrubber to the beginning, get the position keyframe, move to 2 seconds. I'm just going to go ahead and move it this way. Okay, and then come over here and move this here, and then here and move it here, and so forth and so on. And then when we play this back, what we'll get is we'll get a bouncing ball. Now it's not really great, so we're going to have to do some more editing for this. And we actually need to just delete these keyframes and start over because our path the ball is taking isn't lining up with our ball because we did not go ahead and line up all of our anchor point and our subject here. And it's important to line up the anchor point because not only do you want it to be at the center of gravity, but if you do certain things that we are going to do, you're going to want the anchor point to be in specific points so that things will attach to other things in a specific way or otherwise act the way that you want them to. So what I have here is I now have the anchor point at the base of the ball, and I am now going to activate my position keyframe, and I'm going to go ahead and do that same bounce. About every second it's going to hit the ground, and I'm going a little bit out of frame here, and you'll see why in a second. And then it's going to bounce up. It would be about the same, and I could of course be using these position numbers and being very exact with the bounce, but here I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it, and I'm going to have it bounce until it goes off of the screen, and then we'll see what happens here. So I have this going along, and I guess this time it's going to kind of bounce off the screen here, or almost. All right, so now it's off the screen. All right, so now when I play this back, I have a ball, and it's doing an annoying kind of loop. When it bounces, instead of just bouncing straight back up, and it's also not very convincing because it's all happening at the same speed and everything else. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I am going to want to change the angle of the path, and this is the path it is following, and it is curved. So to make this not curved, I'm going to need to change this anchor point of this path, and to do that I need to use the Convert Vertex tool underneath the pen tool, and I just need to click all of these points so they become corner points rather than curve points. And then I'm actually going to want to go ahead and go back to my selection tool, and I'm going to want to extend these points out a little bit so that they are actually a little bit more curved. So we're going to have a little bit nicer bouncing action. So now let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and just play that. So now it is going to bounce and go, and bounce and go. And it's kind of still swooping a little bit at the top. And we'll fix that later. But the next thing I want to introduce is when it hits the ground, I'm going to want to introduce some squash and stretch to, make it act like an actual ball. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this first position here. And I'm going to activate my scale keyframes. I'm going to do that. I'm going to also unlink these so that I can make it different. And when I'm here, I want to note right now that I'm at 100 and 100. But I'm going to want to make this squish a little bit. And I'm going to want to make it stretch a little bit. The goal is to make the mass appear the same, but have the ball feel like it's hitting another mass. So I've done that, but of course I don't have any other keyframes yet, so it's just staying like that. So now on either side of this, I need to bring these numbers back to 100. Okay, and then I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to copy this keyframe over on the other side once we're out of the bounce. So now I have the squish during the bounce. And so all I need to do is I need to select these 3 scale keyframes and copy them, and then paste them whenever the ball is on the ground. Okay, so I'm going to go there and then paste it again. So now I have that squash and stretch, and I can adjust the timing a little bit if I need to. Right, like this timing was just a little bit off. It happened kind of after the bounce. So I can go ahead, I'm going to zoom in on these keyframes by hitting the large mountain here. It's more helpful if my timer is also there. And then I can go ahead and just move these literally so they're lining up properly, so then I get the bounce and it acts the way I want it to. Now, the next step is going to be timing these keyframes so that they also behave properly. So maybe what I'm going to want to do is right-click on a keyframe, and I can do a couple of things. I think the first thing I would try to do is go to Keyframe Assistant and just do an easy ease on all of these and see what that does. That's going to kind of let us ease into each of these keyframes. Okay, and so we'll see what that does. All right, it kind of pauses it at the top, which is a little bit what you want, because there's going to be a little bit of a pause at the top there. And it was just a little kind of stuttery because I needed to preview it here. So let me just get that one. Oops. And then we'll go back to the beginning of the timeline and watch it. And then we should have a pretty nice bouncing ball animation. All right, so there you have the bouncing ball animation and a little bit of adjustments with the position paths and using keyframes and working with multiple keyframes at one time.